Year 1. I simply cried out in pain. Through blizzard and storm, the flames did not go out. Year 3. I wandered while spitting blood. Countless times I bit my tongue to try and forget about the pain. Year 5. My brain grew used to the pain, and my body regained its freedom of movement. The flames still prevented me from breathing properly.
These 3 panels are what inspired me to start reading Firepunch, the manga. A young man's village and remaining family is destroyed by flames that can never be extinguished, wandering around this eternal winter while he's on fire. This is the same author that made Look Back, which is a film that I really enjoyed as well. And that, to me, really proved that he was a master of storytelling. As I was reading the panels, I greatly admired how Tetsuki Fujimoto draws the main character, Agni, with flames constantly obscuring his figure. There's this constant fight between the flames and his regenerating tissue. And as I was reading this manga, one question kept intruding into my mind. How would those flames look in animation? While I'm not an anime creator, I thought I would try making a test scene of this exact scene, this scene that was the first inspiration for me picking up the manga. And this is a 2-part video series. In my last video, I showed the process of me observing reference of the walk cycle. I created this reference myself by wearing a full muscular anatomy suit and recording myself on a treadmill in my house. And I actually made that into a reference pack that anyone can buy and download. So if you want to support the channel, you can support us by buying that anatomy pack. While I had the treadmill set up, I shot loads of reference from multiple angles, and it's tailored to animators who want to learn anatomy for themselves and grow their confidence with anatomy. So animating a perspective walk cycle with full drawn muscular anatomy was quite a daunting challenge to me, but I managed to get through it. And now it's onto the flames. I started by flipping the colors, so turned the body to grayscale, gave it a black background. Now I'm adding by hand with my gradient brush a little bit of lighting to the body and exterior to give it that glow ahead of time before we go into adding the details of the flames. With some software you could, I guess, give it a glow automatically, but I kind of like the inconsistency that comes from brushing it yourself. It can give it this flickering effect. Now I'm lighting the environment. Because he's the light source, the ground would be glowing around him as well. So I'm just attempting to do that here. Maybe the light of the flames also catches on some of the hills around him as well. I'm trying to add some texture, work a little bit of texture in to give it that handcrafted comic feel. I didn't know what I was doing here. I knew that he needed to be walking on a path, so we needed some kind of distance. Then I went with this approach instead, which was just to add some little divots in the ground, some little shadow bits in the ground, and to just draw them receding into the distance. I kind of just eyeballed that effect, so I needed to tweak it a little bit for it to match the speed of him walking. Okay, now we can go on to the flames. These flames have to feel like they are hugging the body, invading all the small inlets of the muscles. By looking at the illustrations, I'm imagining these flames as being quite fast and quite aggressive, like they're burning at a very high temperature. I think we can do that by making them small flames, moving very fast, so they're not going to be big, long, flowy, elegant flames. Now, I figured the most efficient way to create so many of these little tiny flame tongues was to use this tool called a filled stroke. Without this, it could have taken me 2, 3, maybe even 4 times as long to create this flame effect. And now I'm using this really good effect in TV Paint that automatically gives an outline to the shapes. So we're using that filled stroke to build up these very complex flame shapes, and then we're giving that an outline with an automatic effect to make it look like the comic book. But this was really a test frame, this first frame, just to see if I could get it to look like the comic. We're gonna add that effect at the end. You can see what it looks like close up. I think it looks really nice. Now you see that I'm reducing the opacity of the layer at times to see what is going on underneath. I'm also using the onion skin to see the frame before. To get the flame to strobe very aggressively, I'm drawing the flame in a place where it wasn't before. I love using this filled stroke tool because I can just build up those complex shapes very quickly, much quicker than if I were drawing an outline the ordinary way. Like I said before, I'm paying attention to the cracks, so these little striations, I'm trying to fit the flames in there because that's where they would nestle. And I'm also thinking about the wind direction. If he's walking forwards, the flames are going to be slightly angled back most of the time. So while it was much faster to draw it in this way, I found that I could still make the process faster. I started to realize that I was spending a lot of time hugging the outline, so some of my drawing concentration had to be on creating a false outline because I had everything about the flames on a layer above the figure. I realized that that was needless. I didn't need to be doing that. I hope this makes sense. At around this point, I changed my tactic and I realized that I could start by making a layer behind, because I realized that it would always look good if the flames were always surrounding his outline. So now I'm first creating a layer of flame behind him, and then I'm going to create the layer of flames in front of him. And that's actually going to be faster, and it's going to take less cognition from me. It's going to be less mental effort for me to create that. And you can already see here that I'm forging ahead with a lot more speed. You can see it's taken me way less time to go through this, and it just means that I split the work of drawing these flames into two phases, behind flame and the in front flame. So for this behind flame, it's really fast. I can basically just do one outline and instantly create that shape. And the faster I can draw, the more control I'm able to have over those shapes and over the way that the flames flow and move from frame to frame. Here it is at normal speed so far. Well, I went through that very fast, and now I'm going back and tweaking it, adding things, adding layers of detail, because flames like this are very detailed, but it still has to make sense. And I really wanted to try with the shapes. I really had an idea in mind for what the shapes of these flames look like, so it's not completely random how the shapes look. I was definitely thinking about concave versus convex curves, so I wanted to work in these concave curves. Sometimes I will literally just take the eraser and put holes in the shapes to give it that look. Fujimoto-san has excellent shape language and control of those shapes with the flames, so I really wanted to emulate that. This was time consuming and fiddlesome, and I have a lot more footage that I'm going to skip through here because I don't want to take up too much of your time. At a certain point it becomes kind of instinctive, so it wasn't difficult work. And also you develop an instinct for where the flames should go from one frame to another. Here's a little update on what it looks like at this point in time. So this animation that I'm making here, obviously I've said that it's just for personal reasons. I wanted to do it out of curiosity and because I enjoy it, but are there situations where you would need to make something experimental like this? Yes. This is what we might call a proof of concept animation. You might end up needing to do this if you need to pitch an animation idea. One of the best things you can do to pitch your animation concept is to show a little piece of animation that is fully rendered, that basically demonstrates that you can create the look of your animation. And in doing something like this, you discover a lot about the process. Like, you can see that I've made adjustments on the go. You learn a lot about how to produce your animation. Okay, now going back to the footage, you can see that I'm now back onto the top layer and I'm adding all of those extra bits. And you can see that now that I've done the back flames, the flames in front of him are just melting into the back flames, and it's creating this nice wraparound effect. This is still taking a lot of effort, but not as much effort as before. So I do feel like this process has been faster. If I were to assess how I did on this challenge, I would say that I didn't manage to get all of the way there in terms of recreating the look of Firepunch. The illustrations in Firepunch are intensely detailed with the cross-hatching. Each drawing is made out of a lot of lines, and this is just not a very animation-friendly look. So I wouldn't say that my animation perfectly translates the look of the drawings in the manga, but I think when you're animating frame by frame, you have to make some compromises, and you have to find a workflow that is feasible, that is possible, that won't just take an infinite amount of time. So when I finished the top layer of the flames, I still had one more task to do, which is to give the shapes of the flames that border outline, the black outline that I had experimented on earlier. But how do I now do that with these two layers? So I achieved this by stenciling out the background animation and then merging the layers so that all of the flames were on top of the animation. And that way I was able to get this even drawn line, as if I had drawn the outline of these flames from scratch. It's a little bit of a cheat way of doing it, but I had to find a way that wouldn't drive me crazy. I also attempted to add these little intensity lines inside the flames, but I just found that it was a bit too much. Like when I played it back, the intensity of the lines was kind of disrupting the overall shapes of the flames. It seems to work well in the manga on the page, but when it's moving, it's overwhelming. And I actually found that turning off that layer ended up being a little bit more clear what was going on. So that was interesting. I didn't know what would happen there, so it was worth experimenting. And as the final touch, I needed to add snow to the scene. In the world of Firepunch, it's a constant winter. There's always a little bit of a snowstorm going, and I think that element really contrasts nicely with the heat of the flames. So the way I did this was just with one of my brushes, and I just animated these lines on ones going at him, like pointing these lines as streaks, trying to simulate that look of like a front light torch. And if you ever turn on one of those front light torches, if you're camping or something and it's raining or snowing, you'll see that the precipitation creates these streaks that are either moving towards or away from the camera. In this case, away from the camera and towards him, which I felt like that kind of emphasizes the pain as well, because you've got all of these lines like pointing in the direction of him. So I felt like that was a nice coincidence as well. I think after this I need to draw something lighthearted. I really tend to embody the thing that I'm drawing, so it was quite unpleasant for me to draw this. And while I wasn't feeling the heat of the flames directly, you can empathize for the character, and so it wasn't as pleasant as some of my other animation processes. But I actually like how it turned out, despite the fact that I have a slightly different drawing style. For those of you who are not familiar with my channel, my name is Howard Wimshurst. I'm a freelance animator, so I make animations for a variety of clients, and I also teach animation on animateguild.com. That's my website where you can learn how to animate. I make comprehensive courses on the 2D animation process from beginner to advanced to expert level. So check out animateguild.com if you're interested in learning how to animate. It's really fun to be able to make animations like this, to make animated stories and films of your own, and I can show you a lot more about the process over there. And my professional website, if you want to hire me, my website is howardwimshurst.com. You can see my show reel and my portfolio of work going back over 12 years that I've been doing this commercially. Thanks very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.